If there's a job and someone is expected, for example, to come in on site every day and do it, and they, because of their childcare issues, they can't come, then you have to say, is there accommodation? Can I help them find childcare? When you meet people where they are, when you love them for who they are, when you're searching for the gold in a person, it turns out you will get back so much more than you ever thought possible. Knowing that everyone has this inherent potential and gifting and so much to offer just makes me so excited to be with people.
We believe that the next wave of innovation is innovation in the area of social impact.
We want to try to bring awareness about the incarcerated.
A huge number of people are currently homeless simply because they cannot get legal help.
A safe place where they can get set free.
There's no hack for human connection.
Codependency is an addiction.
Do not try to do this big thing at once. Start with a little.
When you're searching for the gold, you will get back so much more than you ever thought possible.
So what do you think? The ball's in your court. Welcome to the Innovat Podcast powered by Geo. We're here in the beautiful House of Web3 in the Presidio in San Francisco in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I'm your host, Ted Hahs. I'm here with my dear friend, Vanessa Russell, who's the founder and CEO of Love Never Fails. So one of the things I'm really excited about, maybe we can put the link to the article in the show notes here.
Yeah.
But there's a study that came out that the academic study, well, I don't remember the university, but demonstrated comparing survivors of trauma to the general population. And it showed that survivors of trauma have a knack for cybersecurity and they outperform the general population.
Yes.
Which to me is super cool. It makes sense because they've spent their whole lives trying to, survive and become hyper vigilant and all that. But it's, and then if you're able to bring the training and turn that around, it's this incredible strength. What also really encourages me is, to me, that was just one sign of a different way of looking at it. Reframing. Like, we need to stop. Like, this is our appeal. This is our appeal to the tech companies, Cisco, Facebook, Tesla, and all of them. You need employees. The health of your company, the future of your company is 100%. It's your people. It's the talent you have there. N1 visas are very expensive, and there's no people to come anymore, just through demographics. Here is a population that overperform, and we've overlooked them, and we haven't given the proper resources. But rather than saying, oh, this is merciful, this is the right thing to do, which it certainly is, to say, no, this is an untapped resource that we need to mine and need to bring the best out of it. Because if we can make that paradigm shift, okay, now we can scale it. And now we can bring the resources that are necessary to really solve the problem.
Absolutely.
So I love how you're doing that.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a challenge for employers, and I think the challenge is they're a little scared because they don't know how to speak the language of a diverse person.
Yeah.
They don't know how to speak the language of a trauma impacted person. And I would just say to an employer who's thinking, yeah, she's right. Let us be your translator. We'll be your Google translator. But we'll hopefully do it in a culturally relevant and, linguistically and experientially relevant way. And in fact, 92% of our staff are survivors of interpersonal violence. And we, pride ourselves on our students being, 86% of our students being Black and Latino. 72% of our students are women. And we are 61% of our students we've been able to place in economically sustainable jobs.
I wanted to ask you more about that, because that's one of the strengths. I love seeing it. You're not just a nonprofit, you're also a organization. Your business model happens to be nonprofit.
Right.
You're a growing startup, and you're facing all of those issues, and you've tapped into this. You showed this image of the magnitude of the problem, and what are the numbers of how many people are being trafficked?
100 to 300,000, and this is a low estimate according to the DOJ, which is 1 to 3 football stadiums worth of people.
And that's in the U.S.
In the U.S.
each year.
each year.
And you showed a football stadium filled with people, and my initial reaction was just overwhelmed and like depressed, because like, this is so, how can we possibly tackle that? But then I connected it with the fact that you have 40% of your employees are survivors of human trafficking.
31, yeah.
31. 90% are survivors of trauma.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, we just need to shift our lens, because that's not just the magnitude of the problem, that's the magnitude of the opportunity. And you're modeling that these, and obviously, when people get to know you, you're a force of nature, you're an incredible advocate. Your whole team is that way. You've done a great job of building this culture, and I'm impressed every time I interact with them, whether it's Elizabeth, who's an advisor who has her own organization, or if it's just one of your assistants. It's like they have this same incredible power and passion. It's like, oh, wow, these are some of the most equipped, articulate, smart, clever advocates, and they were part of that crowd.
Yes.
And now they've come out, and they are the most powerful employees and the most powerful change agents. And if we can shift that lens and say, oh, wow, this is an opportunity, let's seize this opportunity. I'm dreaming of a California gold rush, where we realize that the gold, a material, a metal, is of tiny value compared to a human, and the human spirit and the human potential.
Yes.
And to me, the tragedy of the gold rush, where we came in and we got out all these gold, but it was a genocide to the indigenous people here.
Yeah.
It's just brutal. The tragedy is not just how bad that was, but how foolish it was. It's like, here we are doing all this work to get pennies while we're trampling on $100 bills in the process.
Yeah.
My dream of California, the next phase, is this gold rush, where we come here to figure out how to mine the most important thing, which is the human potential.
Yes.
And I love how you're modeling that inside your organization.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. It's happening so organically. I didn't plan on being this kind of organization, but it turns out when you meet people where they are, when you love them for who they are, when you find when you're searching for the gold in a person, it turns out you will get back so much more than you ever thought possible. I mean, I'm always somebody who sees things a little bit further. I've had to be careful, because I notice things about people and they don't know things about themselves, and I go, oh, you're this, I see this on you, I see you're going to do this, and they're like, really? And years later it happens. So I've had to learn to keep my mouth shut, to not scare people. But knowing that everyone has this inherent potential and gifting and so much to offer, it just makes me so excited to be with people.
Yeah, and maybe you can expand a little bit more on what do you do? Because these are not easy things. Like, it's not like like this can go really wrong. You know, like you said, this is why you're hesitant. You know, a tech company can hire a survivor of trauma and it be a real disaster, or hire a reentry someone who's justice involved, and it can go bad. But hiring anyone can go bad.
Right.
It's always a risk.
Yeah.
But it's understanding how you mitigate that risk and understanding it for what it is, and that there's best practices. And I think the stats show that, like with the reentry population, they actually make very good employees in the right environment. They're more loyal. They're less likely to leave because they're grateful for the opportunity. But it's understanding that and demythicizing it. So it's just, no, we're not going to go there, to no, if we're going to go there, this is how we do it properly.
Yes.
So why don't you share on some of the best practices that you've implemented to keep your team healthy?
Yeah, I think what you have to do is you have to put, so we've identified there are 114 barriers to employment, and we actually have a white paper that we've written on that. And so
we can link that in the show notes. Okay, so there you go.
So when you think about 114 barriers to employment, there are things like, what if somebody has schizoaffective disorder? Okay, this is a real issue. What if somebody's bipolar? What if somebody has anxiety? What if somebody has mobility issues? What if somebody has fear of going out in the outdoors. They can only do a remote job. What if somebody has children, 3, 4 children, and now they're a single mom? They've just escaped from a domestic violence situation. These are all real situations. And so employers have to ask themselves am I prepared to hire people like this? And if I'm not, why not? And then what would it take for me to get ready to hire someone? I know somebody who has schizoaffective disorder. In fact, I hired him. He works for me. And I know what I can ask him to do, and I know what would put too much strain on him. So I don't ask him. One of our model employees.
Wow.
He's amazing.
Wow.
But I can't ask him to start going and doing something that's totally out of his wheelhouse and stress him out, because that's not going to be good for either of us. So I know I've spent enough time getting to know him to know what his strengths are and what his happy spot is. Or, as we have a life coach company that we partner with. It is amazing, and she calls it the sweet spots and the sour spots. And she tells each person, here's your avatar, here's your sweet spots. Communicate that to your leadership team so that your leaders will know how to reach you and how to get the most productivity out of you, because that's what employers are looking for, in the most trauma-informed way.
So what I love what you just described is that's really the job of any good leader, of any CEO. It's about building up people. The better that you are about building up a team, the better you are as a leader. Mm-hmm. And you've just added to it a further skill set.
Yeah.
Like every employer needs to know where their employees are going to shine and where they're going to burn out and where they're going to underperform. And it's about putting them in that position where they can shine. And you're just adding more depth to that skill set.
Yeah. Now, I've had people that are like, I have worked with other individuals that are hearing voices and they're full on in, need of medication and maybe deeper clinical assessment. I can't help you with that as an employer. And so I've had to say, here's what we're going to do. Take a break, go get assessed, go get well, go get stabilized. I'm still going to be in community with you. You're not over there. You're not a bad person, somebody I don't want to talk to. No. I'm still praying for you. I'm still reaching out to you. I still want to know how your kids are doing, all of that. It's just in the workplace, we need somebody who's a little more stable to show up, because maybe your behaviors might be scaring other people, or other people don't understand how to engage with you, those kinds of things. So it's not to say, if there's a job and someone is expected, for example, to come in on site every day and do it, and because of their childcare issues, they can't come, then you have to say, is there another way? Can I accommodate? Is there accommodation? Can I help them find childcare? And it's like, like I had one employee years ago who had anxiety about anybody watching her kids because of things that she had been through. She needed to go through some deep clinical care for that, because she could not release her children to the care of someone else, so she could not do a lot of the things that were required with the job. But how many employers do you know will take the time?
With her?
Oh yeah. So we worked on that, and we said, you probably can work about 10 hours a week, because your kids are down sleeping, or they're more manageable, about 10 hours. Don't know if you can scale to 40 hours. And we worked through a format that would work for them and work for us. But there's some risks to this,
yes,
Ted.
And it's finding the win-wins,
Yeah.
That's the key of being a leader. And you're always, you have to execute. You have to have a mission. If you don't execute, no one's going to win.
Yeah.
But then also taking the time to invest in the people and thinking outside of the box. And now you're tapping into, what's impressive to me is you're not just talking about someone who's good at caring for people who need care. Mm-hmm. You're talking about someone who's built an elite team, who's performing at a very elite level.
Yeah.
And it's almost Moneyball for social services, because you're taking these people that have issues outside the box, but you see this potential in them, and the proof's in the pudding. Your team is performing at a very high level, and your organization is growing, and you guys are doing great.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the AI advocate, and some of the things you're very concerned with, and the solution that we're beginning to implement in the vision we see of getting this community more engaged in the political process and empowering them to have their voices heard in policy.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about that?
So, AI Advocate, and much like many of our programs, was born out of a very difficult, painful place that I found myself in after the passing of SB 357. SB 357 legalized loitering for the purpose of prostitution in 2022 or 23, January. When that happened, we saw an explosion of street trafficking, 3x, and it was pretty horrific. And what I was pained by is that there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, we don't want the police near anybody who's being, who's out on the blade. We don't want the police near anybody. And the people who made the bill sort of really appealed to the pain. And I call it appealing to Black pain or appealing to Latino pain. Saying you don't want the police, anti-police, the anti-police sentiment that was going on. You want the police around you. But the truth of the matter is the police are all we got oftentimes when our neighborhoods are going amok. And that's who we're calling. And if there's nowhere if they're not going to come and help our baby girl get off the street, who is going to come? And so we really didn't think that through, and I'm tired of being at the mercy of politicians sort of flying blind. And so I started asking myself, how did this get passed? And what I realized is that the average grade level, reading level rather, in an impoverished community is about fourth or fifth grade. And yet when you look at the legislators that are creating our laws, only 1% of those legislators only have a bachelor's degree. 1%. Almost all of them have a master's, doctorate, lawyers, right? And so they're writing these bills in language that none of us can understand. And when I went around and I started saying, do you know what SB 357 is? Do you know what it is? What does SB stand for? How are laws made? Asking college educated people, nobody knew. Nobody knew. The people would say, when can we vote on that? You don't. You don't vote on bills. Your senator or your assembly members vote on them. You vote them in. Oh, I didn't know that. So it made me realize we are really civically unaware, and especially survivors of gender-based violence. And so what I decided to do is create something that's called AI Advocate, which will be an application. We're actually working with Develop for Good to create the designs this summer, and then we will make it into a mobile app. But right now it's a methodology. And what it does is we have a panel of 12 survivors of human trafficking that we are selecting. Right now they're impromptu selections, but we will actually have a set panel. It will be a diverse panel, including people who are, Black, Latino, Asian, Native, people that are men, women, gender nonconforming, people that are Christian, people that are Muslim, people that are, diverse.
That represent the community.
Represent the community. And they're all going to be on this panel, 12 people. And we're going to go through every bill. And we're going to translate gender-based bill, so a bill that's dealing with gender-based violence, domestic violence, human trafficking, namely, and we're going to translate it using AI. Our goal is to create a custom AI. Right now we're using Gemini. We translate everything down into a basic, simple AI so that anybody can understand what it's saying. Then we ask for feedback, we document pros and cons, and we publish the stats of the demographics of the panel, as well as the output of the panel. And so we use that to evaluate a bill called SB 1414, which Senator Grove Shannon Grove launched, and which would make it a felony to purchase children in California. Today it is a misdemeanor, which means that someone would get 2 days or up to $10,000 in fines. Just to give you some context, we pulled a FOIA here in San Francisco on citations for prostitution since 2012 to 2021. There were 1,400 incidents of prostitution in that time period. Only 5 went to jail. So 1,395 people were cited out. And I promise you they weren't cited for $10,000. So you could actually get cited less than it costs for you to buy the child here in San Francisco and throughout the Bay Area. Unfortunately, when that bill was presented, again, we ran it through AI Advocate, and we saw there were some things that needed to be fine-tuned. We gave the panel feedback to Senator Grove's office, and she made all the changes that the survivors asked for. She presented it to the senators, and as I was saying, unfortunately, 3 of the 5 Public Safety Committee senators edited by force her bill to remove 16 and 17-year-olds from being protected. Made it what's called a wobbler, meaning it could be a misdemeanor or a felony for 15 and below, and made it so that nobody would go to prison for buying children. So even if you get the felony, it can only be jail time, no prison. So that was very sad to me, especially from some of the senators that represent San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose, some of the most impacted areas in the nation. And so, needless to say, getting some of our survivors, their voice involved, is influencing the way the policy was created. And now we've reviewed about 10 bills, and we've posted that on our website under loveneverfailsus.com/AI advocate. And our goal, again, is to empower not just our small community, but everybody.
Well, to me, I look at this from a lens of innovate and the lens of an entrepreneur. And I think this is just a brilliant opportunity, because when you talk about your community be disenfranchised from the democratic process, everyone's disenfranchised from the democratic process. I talk to my peers who are college educated. They don't know what SB 1414 is. They don't know this. They don't know what's happening. They're disconnected, and intentionally so. And the incentives of our elected officials and the incentives of those who are affected by the policies they make. So the policymakers and those affected are very different. And it's opaque, the system. And if we can bring transparency to it and engage everyone, and if we can reach the most disenfranchised group, I think we can create a tool. To me, I think this is one of the most exciting applications of AI and also blockchain. And if we can do that, this can disrupt democracy. This can make it what we dreamed of, a government by the people, for the people, where we actually get these diverse voices who everyone pretends to represent, but very few people actually represent them.
Right.
And if we can do that, this has huge opportunity. And right now, it's really just a startup. And it's one of these social purpose startups that also has huge potential. So if you're an investor, reach out to me. I'll connect you with Vanessa, and let's put the right resources we need to make this happen. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, my hope is that we will not only educate the community, empower survivors, but also employ our IT Biz graduates to support this app, to maintain it, to be part of the technical back end. So I feel that it is an opportunity to provide end-to-end resourcing of the very people that have been impacted.
And it's a tool for policymakers to make better policies.
That's right.
It's a brilliant tool. It's one of the most brilliant tools I've seen, or processes, workflows. But it's also a tool for advocates to then hold our elected officials accountable.
Yep.
And yes, you don't vote on bills, but you vote on the representatives. And if they don't vote the way you want, you vote them out and you vote in new ones. And I see members of your community coming out and being the advocates, and then actually being the ones who are elected and become some of the best policymakers. It turns out there's going to be a future study. Survivors of trauma overperform the general population as policymakers for their community, which I think that's a no-brainer, because they are from their community. Right. So thank you so much for this conversation. Any closing thoughts? And also, how can people find you?
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you, Ted. You are an amazing leader and a friend. And I'm so grateful I'm trying to think who connected us.
Was it Morgan?
Morgan,
yes. In 2020. In 2020, it was
all
divine
of Morgan's
timing,
connections.
Morgan is a gem. The Bay Area is going to miss her.
Yes. So, but I want to just thank you for being on our board. Thank you for your innovation in so many different ways. People can get in touch with me by going to our website, loveneverfailsus.com, or emailing me, vanessa@loveneverfailsus.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's solve the world's biggest challenges. That's what Innovate is all about.